All right, Aquarius. So you pulled a card from Lay Vampire that's been showing up a lot lately for me. Ancient, Ancestry, Egypt, and Magical Inheritance. And then from Chakra Wisdom, you pull Forgiveness. Now, Ancient. The reason why this card has significance for me is because my husband and I are just recently talking about doing a video here on the channel where we're going to be partnering up with National Geographic's next gen DNA testing and getting really deep into, our genetic history. And what we love about the National Geographic one is they go a little bit deeper than what you would see in like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA. This has the potential here to show us like real deep ancestral roots. And I'm loving that this is showing up for you. But when you're looking at it with forgiveness, it may be a need here for you to get a deeper understanding of who you are and where you come from so that you can forgive family members. Ancient is talking about the family connection and getting a greater knowledge of yourself and how you connect with family members. And again, with forgiveness, it's one of those situations where the quote for this card talks about you don't truly forgive other people, you forgive yourselves for having judged them. But it does talk about in the inspiration how, there may be a need here for you to like focus on your intention and not on the pain when it comes to needing to do some family healing. But it's almost like the way that you're going to be able to do that is by getting a greater knowledge of yourself. So, definitely with Ancient showing up, I will say for Aquarius, if you are looking at doing any kind of DNA testing where you get to look back at how your ancestors migrated from sub-Saharan Africa into the different continents, definitely do your research when it comes to these DNA testing kits. But this is also good too when it comes to doing some meditating and tapping into, that ancestral energy and seeing, and what's funny is, I don't know why this popped into my head, but for Scorpio and Aquarius, a lot of times you hear about, they're like mortal enemies because you have the one who's blunt and logical. And then you have the other one who's deep and intense when it comes to emotions. It's like polar opposites. But for some reason for me, and I think it's because Aquarius is my south node, where, I seem to have a better connection there. But it's just, it blows me away that, you guys are the ones to pull Ancient. And with everything that we've been talking about lately, it's amazing. And it's one of my favorite cards. So definitely, if you're considering that, do your research and find out. All right, Aquarius. Shit. Now, I've always said this when it comes to, other elements when I'm doing their readings. When the King of Swords shows up for them, it's one of those situations where I'm like, he better have some really good fucking cards around him for me to see him in the positive. The only exception to that is when I'm doing air signs. And when you're looking at the King of Swords as your signifier, this is fantastic. This is saying that you are really in tune with who you are. Being logical, being that clear-cut communicator, but also being fair and being just. But logically, you're in a fantastic spot. It's like you're like super in tune with yourself, which is great. And in the past, the Fool. So, this may be a situation here where, you're taking that leap of faith, right, into something new. It is the new path. When you're looking at the Fool as the past coming through, this may be why you're looking at the energy of you here as a signifier. Maybe some of you decided to move away from other things and start on a totally new path here where you're trusting in the experience. Oh, shit. Wow. In the present, the King of Pentacles. The energy is good. It's good. Whew. So, not only are you being extremely smart, but you're being extremely practical too, looking at the energy of the kings. And I've always said this, when you see two kings in a reading, success for you guys. And that's great, especially with the King of Pentacles, right? But, you know, for some of you, it may be dealing with, like we said before, with the devil showing up, dealing with an earth sign, right? Taurus, Cap, or Virgo. You know, and for some of you, this just could be you and you have some earth in your chart and you're just taking a new path here where maybe you're tapping into, you know, equal amounts of energy in both the King of Pentacles and the King of Swords. Shit. And apparently there's some fire in there too. Shit. The Knight of Wands. Here's the thing. When you're looking at this in terms of you, right? You're perfect. You are perfect. Your focus is exactly where it needs to be. You are in tune with yourself. You know what you want. You're clear cut and you're able to make good, decisive decisions that are practical on top of that. But you also have this feeling of passion. The Knight of Wands is one of those cards where, you know, he's off. He's going after his passions. He comes in like a fucking whirlwind and there's all this passion surrounding him and he's off to the next, right? And it's good to see in terms of like messages coming through, you know, and then when I see the Knight of Wands too, I think of traveling. And that's funny. It's funny because I've always said when Mercury goes retrograde, it's one of those things where there seems to be people traveling a lot, doing a lot of traveling. But overall, you look great. You look fantastic. You know, you may be dealing with a couple of different people, and you could just be dealing with one person, but the energy surrounding it looks really good. Oh, your best path to follow. And you know what's funny is that that's typical of Aquarius anyway. When it comes to the way that you communicate, it's basically saying don't hold back. You know, you say what you need to say. The Seven of Wands very much is about using your voice. I've always said that this card is, I'm not taking any more shit. This is how I feel. This is where I stand. This is what I think. You know, if you have people that are opposing your viewpoints, that's just tough shit. You know, I really do feel like Spirit is saying you need to speak up. You know, don't ever let yourself be silenced. Even if somebody doesn't agree with your own viewpoints, to hell with that. You know, you have the right to say how you feel and what you think. But I'm not seeing anything bad, you know. I mean, yeah, you could be dealing with somebody who's coming through that, you know, maybe like, well, wait a minute here, you know, what about this, that, and the other thing, you know, and you're just like, no. Like, I know, like, I understand the situation, and I'm going to tell you about it, you know. I just kind of worry looking at that and looking at forgiveness, you know what I mean? But then at the same time, you can't back down either. Oh, in your environment. Okay, here's the thing. If you are dealing with another person, and again, you know, when you're looking at the devil, you know, it could be a situation here where you may be dealing with, you know, again, an earth sign. You know, that may be coming through with a lot of passion, but I think you need to stay true to who you are, right? And make sure that they understand, look, this is me, right? When you're looking at the Two of Cups in your environment, you know, for me, this is more so about, you know, the bonding relationship. It's a really good relationship. But for me, you know, it does have the feeling of like love. And I say that because when you look at the Two of Cups, these people are so absorbed in each other that nothing else in the world exists. You know, they're sharing their feelings, their emotions, they're sharing everything. Everything's being reciprocated. And for you, it could be a need here for you to take a leap of faith into a new relationship that may be really passionate. But then again, when you're looking at the devil, you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, it could just be signaling that this may be a cap for some of you. And it could be a situation here where you just need to let go of the things that may be, you know, like holding you down. You know, and it may just be a situation here where you just need to use your voice, you know. Oh, your hopes and your fears. The Nine of Swords. Ew. Aquarius. When you're looking at, you know, first of all, when you're looking at your hopes and your fears, this has the potential to manifest. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to manifest. It manifests based on how much focus you put on it. And when you're looking at the Nine of Swords, this is feelings of regret, mental anguish and suffering, and bad thinking, bad negative thinking. It's all the mental shit that you do to yourself. You know, and maybe that's what you need to release yourself from. Bad thinking. Especially when it comes to, you know, a relationship. You know, it's almost like, you know, the Fool is there, but it's almost like, are you really, you know, fully taking that leap, right? Or are you like hesitant about it? You know, and looking at, you know, what's happening though, it's like, looking at the Seven of Wands, and then, you know, it's funny because the Page of Cups flipping the way it did, you know, this could just be, you know, you needing to voice the way that you feel, which is definitely, you know, something that is not typical for Aquarius, right? It's not that, you know, you're like purposely hiding emotions or anything like that. It's just, if you're having difficult thoughts surrounding a relationship, it's like time to speak up about it, I think. And, you know, that may help like alleviate what is going on mentally. But, you know, again, it's just something that's there. It's there. There's an acknowledgement, but, you know, it only fully manifests into reality, again, based on, you know, how much focus you're going to put on this. But I'm like, why are you thinking so negatively about another person? You know, and it could be family issues, right? And the need to forgive. Oh, and then the outcome, the Seven of Swords. Ew, man, the Seven of Wands and the Seven of Swords, when you're talking about using your voice, it's like you don't. The Seven of Swords too is one of those cards where, you know, I don't, in this deck, I don't see it as like sneaky, deceptive shit. You know, I just think it's, you know, not really speaking. And then the other thing too is, you know, if you let your thoughts get the best of you when it comes to, you know, relationships and like maybe needing to repair them, right? It's almost like you get to a point here where you don't. It's like you don't. And maybe you do. Maybe you do need to start speaking up, especially if, you know, and then the other thing that I'm hearing is like somebody interfering in a relationship, which could be causing like some mental distress where, you know, maybe you're not wanting to speak up because you're not wanting to like cause problems. It's almost like, because, you know, when you're looking at the relationship, right, and again, if you're dealing with, you know, an earth sign, it's like, I kind of feel like you're trusting in the relationship, but then at the same time, I feel like there's an external, like, source that, because looking at the two of them, and then looking at this, it's like if you have somebody coming through that is like running amok within a relationship, mentally you're in a spot where it's like affecting you. But are you going to speak up about it, or are you going to be silent about it? And I do feel like that for some of you, you know, this whole situation is saying that when you're looking at it here, you need to speak up. You know, you got to speak up. You know, I'm not seeing anything like horribly wrong within the relationship, you know, but it's just that I think you have, I think you have somebody that's like running amok within the relationship, and you're like, ugh, you know, and it's mentally just driving you nuts, and you want to say something about it, but you eventually don't. You know, and Spirit is trying to tell you, fuck that, say what you need to say, right? But then there's also the part too where, you know, when it comes to family, maybe the reason why you're like being quiet is because, you know, when you're looking at forgiveness, you're deciding that you're not going to focus on the pain of the situation. You're just going to forgive yourself for allowing it to get to this point, basically. All right, we're going to take a look at the soul trees to see what else is going on for you guys. But I think that the full looking at you in the middle and in the relationship, and then seeing the King of Pentacles, and again, with it being a general reading, this could be male or female. The reason why the King of Swords is showing up for your signifier is because for me, I see that as Aquarius. It doesn't matter whether it's male or female. To me, it's just saying you very much know how you think and how you feel about this situation. I think that you have faith and trust within the relationship. It's just that there may be, an outside meddling source is what I feel like, just looking at these two. But I do think that you need to be true to who you are, and screw all that, say what you need to say, right? But, do it in a way where, it doesn't affect the relationship. And compassion. Here's the thing. When it comes to, the Nine of Swords and tranquility, definitely, that's what you're needing. You're needing some tranquility. The possibilities are endless when it comes to dealing with the situation. But the best way, I think, for a lot of you to do this is to have compassion. And here's the thing with compassion. When you're looking at this card, it's asking you to have compassion for other people, even though you may not understand why they're acting the way that they choose to. Calling in your soulmate, your prayers and affirmations and visualizations help bring you together, and then release your ex. Wow, the time has come to clear your energy. Whew. Man. So, there's a couple different things. Now, when you're looking at, for those of you who are happy within a relationship, you need to let go of that energy. Calling in your soulmate, it's like calling in that energy within the relationship, right? And like deepening the bond. You know what I mean? It's like calling them in to help you do some healing, right? Like making a stronger connection within the relationship. But that is only when you clear out that energy. Now, on the other hand, this could have to do with, and I kind of get the feeling here that this has to do with your partner. And it may be a situation where they need to release their ex too. You know what I'm saying? But when I see calling in your soulmate, when I ask that question, and when I ask the question for what are the messages for couples, and I see this card, you're calling in your partner to act as if they are your soulmate and start helping you learn and heal through difficult situations. But, forgiveness, there needs to be forgiveness and some compassion from Aquarius. And I think that that's what will help bring some tranquility to the mental crap that may be going on. And again, it may be a meddling outside source, and it may be an ex situation. Now, for those of you who are single, this may just have to do with family relationships, and if you're meeting somebody new, just make sure you take the time to get to know them. But I also feel like that's a part of, those who are in relationships too, right? Getting to know your soulmate. But overall, Aquarius, I do think that Spirit is trying to tell you here that there is a way for you to say what you need to say without being too brutal.